Good morning, Nature Coast Church and Rhythms of Grace listeners. For the first time this morning, I always wonder when I go live, I actually almost forgot to put this on a page I manage, which is the Nature Coast Church page, and almost put this live out on my own Facebook feed, which I don't want to do. But I'm always wondering when you go live, no mistakes. I was frantically clicking as the thing gives me 3, 2, 1, all the way down, trying to say, no, go live. And I think I saved it from going live. But we are live now on the Nature Coast Facebook page. It is Thursday morning, and my name is Brad, and I am Thursday's contributor to Rhythms of Grace, and I'm glad to be here. I am a minister at Nature Coast Church. We woke up this morning again to another mass shooting in California. We just got done with pretty volatile midterm elections, and I always feel that followers of Jesus, the Church of Christ, the Church of Christ, the larger Church of Christ, God has given us good news to share in moments like this, and I'm going to at least that's where my thoughts are going to kind of be wrapped around here today. I'm going to read from Psalm 131 and really go broadly from that, and just talk about this a little bit. And we live in a culture and a world that's we live in a world certainly in America or Western world, where humanity just seems to be ripping each other and ourselves apart. And where does the gospel come into that? Where is the good news in that? And so I'm going to read from Psalm 131 and hopefully find a little good news, a little rhythm of grace for this day. God, I'm not trying to rule the roost. I don't want to be the king of the mountain. This is from the Message. I haven't meddled where I have no business or fantasized grandiose plans. Those Psalm 131 is maybe the shortest psalm, but it starts out just in that phrase: God, I'm not trying to rule the roost. I don't want to be king of the mountain. I haven't meddled where I have no business or fantasized grandiose plans. If you wanted to summarize what the psalmist is trying to say there as he's talking to God, I haven't tried to win. I'm not in this thing for winning's sake. I'm not trying to win. I think one of the reasons we are ripping each other apart is we're always trying to win. And that becomes kind of the narrative by which we operate in our relationships. It's also why our marriages fall apart. I think sometimes it's why our parental-child relationships fall apart. We're so interested in winning. We're so interested in being right. And so we do that with our spouse. We do that with our children. And our children do that with us. We do that with those who we disagree with. We do that in the church. It's why churches are ripped apart, because everybody is winning. And it seems to be a popular term. If you are involved in social media, sometimes you'll see a post that just comes out, what's your status? I'm winning. And usually that means there's some kind of drama going on and they're winning, and they're communicating to whoever it is that they're winning, which probably means you're not winning if you're having to post that you are winning. But that's the vicious cycle we live in the drama, this world that we live in. And even on this morning, where we grieve what's happened in California, God, instead of trying to win, Goes on to say, I've kept my feet on the ground. I've cultivated a quiet heart. Like a baby content in its mother's arms, my soul is baby content. So instead of winning, I'm like a baby. I've kept my feet on the ground. I've cultivated a quiet heart, not an anxious heart. And like a baby, a weaned baby in its mother's arms. So in the other versions, it says it's a weaned baby. Like a weaned baby, my soul is content. And that's what a weaned baby is. A weaned baby, a baby. One of the beautiful things about breastfeeding is the reality of a child. There you go. There's an issue that rips humanity apart. If you breastfeed or don't breastfeed. No, I can't. You just can't even have a topic. But one of the beautiful things, side note, about breastfeeding is the baby's head being turned toward its mother and nursing. And I am not a mother. I have not been a mother. I have had children who breastfeed. I know women who have experienced that. I think there is a contentment and joy. And when a baby is done feeding, when a baby is done feeding, it sits there in its mother's arms. Its soul is quiet. I love the imagery of the psalmist here. The soul is content. The psalmist is saying here that instead of winning, my heart and my soul are like a weaned baby who has just drunk their fill of Jesus, and my soul is quiet, and it is in your arms. It's in God's arms, and there's a peace and a quietness there that allows something else to happen, which helps, I think, where we're going here today in the midst of this torn apart humanity. And there's this wait, people of God, for God. Wait with hope. Hope now. Hope always. I actually believe one of the reasons we rip each other apart, one of the reasons a shooting happens this morning, or coming out of our elections, we live in this world where everyone's ripping each other apart. It's actually a world that's lost hope. And so our hope kind of becomes, okay, I'm losing hope, so I got to take matters into my own hands. And I think the aggressiveness, I mean, there's no doubt, I don't know, I think it's too new, I don't know why or what happened in California overnight, but there is no doubt that that individual who did that, at some point in time, they lost hope, and they engaged in what they did. And the psalmist is saying that this loss of hope actually comes when we actually live in this way where we're trying to win, where we then don't find contentment in the nourishment of the good news of the gospel. But there's something about the nourishment, the weaning, the waiting, the drinking of the gospel, the drinking of the living water that then allows our soul to trust and to wait and to hope. And this psalmist doesn't say it, but then it allows us to join and work in our relationships with each other, which is kind of where I want to close with, because where there is drinking of the living water, where there is eating of the living bread, where we have been weaned on the bread of life, we've been weaned on the living water, there will be a quietness to us that then allows us to live and work in relationships. And I think one of the things that this was, this last week is, I think if you're doing well, you're kind of living in a world where, certainly in the world of our country, I think you're doing well. You have people that you agree and disagree with, and you're around them all the time. And so I've been in that situation in the last week and listened to people banter back and forth to each other, and sometimes anxiously, sometimes somewhat aggressively. And I like to observe and engage. But one of the things that I think happens, because I'm thinking, how does the good news, what happens in the good news? Because I think we're all trying to convince each other of our position, or we're trying to convince each other that we're right. We're doing these things with purpose, and most of the people I know are good-hearted. They're not bad people. They're not mean people, but there's just all this fracturing going on because they actually believe they're doing the good work of trying to get someone to think the way that they think. What would be helpful in those situations? Because I think, well, I could try the approach of, that person's not a monster. They maybe have views that are different than yours, and maybe their views are a little bit skewed, but it doesn't make them a monster, because that can only come from the heart and can be sat down and looked at it. They're not a demon. They're not the devil incarnate. They may think differently. You may think there's a consequence to what they're thinking. You may think all of those things. And I thought of that route, but I think one of the things that Scripture does, that the gospel does, is it allows us, I think, to live and work in relationship by realizing that in the cross, we're all equalizers. I think the underpinning reality of why we tear each other apart is we just think we're better than other people. And I think a dose of that we are all redeemed, and being redeemed people under the cross would open up our hearts, and that's part of the gospel. And I think we betray ourselves by the way we even view God's law in the Bible. If you use God's law to mock and destroy and to put down other people, we know from the Bible itself that you're not, if you use God's law to morally beat people up with, we know that you're not engaging relationally, because the purpose of the law, the purpose of the law is for us to love our neighbor as ourselves. The purpose of the law is for us to love God. And we get the purpose of the law is to show us that we need Jesus, which will then help us to love our neighbor. Jesus even says, love one another as I have loved you. And I think there's hope in that for us this morning. And I guess I would encourage that's why I will never back off the gospel. I think in these moments where our world and humanity is tearing each other apart, that the good news of the gospel is our only hope. Or yelling and screaming at each other are not. And that's why I never want to back off of the good news. Because the good news, Romans tells us, is the power of God that will save us. And America needs saving right now. I need saving, and you need saving, and our relationships need saving, our marriages need saving, our parent-child relationships need saving, our relationships with our coworkers need saving. And that's what the good news does. It is the power of God that works relationally, not only in our relationship with God. It is the power of God that works and saves our human relationships too. And so, for those who want to scream at me for saying the good news too much, it's too bad, because it's the thing that I believe is our hope for our fractured humanity. And reflecting even back to a couple of weeks ago, when the one tree that God did not want us to eat of, the one tree, was named the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There was something that God, in his design for us, did not want us to know the knowledge of good and evil. We did, and we've ripped each other apart ever since. Cain killed Abel immediately. And that's why Jesus came, so that we could wean and drink of the bread of life. We could drink of the living water. Our soul could be quieted in the midst of a world that is very noisy and ripping each other apart, and we can trust the Lord. And in doing that, we can love our neighbor, just as we love God. And we can love our neighbor even as Christ loved us. And he loved us while we were still sinners. He commended, he pursued us while we were still sinners. And so that becomes the ethic the good news by which the power of God can heal our broken homes, our broken marriages, our broken relationships, our broken world, our broken country. The gospel, the good news, is the power of God. I hope that is helpful this day. We will be back Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time live here at Nature Coast Church. Also tomorrow morning, maybe Elizabeth, I don't know if Elizabeth will watch this beforehand. I was with my sister last week, and she's, my brother does these things too, and she says, no offense to you or Chad, but I'd rather listen to Elizabeth on Rhythms of Grace. So anyway, be encouraged. My sister lives in Sacramento and loves to listen to you. And blessings tomorrow if you are able to do it. All right, I'll see you later, and remember the good news in this fractured world. It's what saves me. It's what saves you. And we can save other relationships only when we realize that we need to be saved too. Peace.